And we are live. Good evening, alienated parents, grandparents, alienated children, friends, family, anyone out there who is missing their children. Thank you for coming on to Let's Talk tonight. And tonight we have a special guest who is also was an alienated mom for 1,038 days, and then she's going to tell us her story on how this all happened. But we have here Lisa Breece Linke. She is the director of operations at PAS Family Advocacy, BTCDC. I'm not sure what that means, but you're going to explain that to us, Lisa. Lisa is a mental health professional driven to help others overcome personal obstacles. She is a responsible self-starter who communicates well and is dedicated to improving the well-being of her clients. Welcome, Lisa. We all know that Tuesday, April 25th, is Parent Alienation Worldwide Day, and this is part of our special with you here today to share in our worldwide event. It's going to be for the next 3 days. But welcome, Lisa. So sorry that you had to go through all this as a professional, and it just goes to show that it's not just low-income families that lose their children. And there's doctors, there's lawyers. My own doctor lost his children a week after I did, when his wife had him falsely arrested. She had me falsely arrested because I wouldn't join her side and was very jealous that her husband was my doctor. So she took my kids away from me, which was sad because I gave her my kids to take good care of. I thought I was, doing the right thing, but they pull the rug out from underneath you and you don't know who you're getting or what you're into when it comes to divorce. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary, for having me. And I totally understand. I was there in the family court system for 5+ years. It started in 2010. We ended up sharing 50-50 custody for 7.5 years. But to back it up, CDC is child development counselor, BT is behavior therapist. I worked with a lot of children and families on the spectrum of special needs. I'm very familiar. I worked in the residential care where they take these traumatized children to for the 5150 holds. I worked in such places as San Diego Center for Children, New Alternatives Residential Care. So I'm very familiar of the process and how it's primarily driven by paperwork, state incentives, federal funding, not what's in the best interest of the offspring or child, which is state legalese. So I always said, if this could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. And I remember saying that in 2017. And I just didn't understand how the prosecution or the state actors or whoever was involved with the cohesive control with my ex, how this could really happen.
I worked in such places as San Diego Center.
And it gave me that drive to just say, no, this is not okay. And there's so many other parents and especially children, sons and daughters suffering. So here we are, 2023, 6 years later. I was an alienated mom for 1,038 days, October of 2017 to August 2021, where I filed everything under the sun. There was no remedy in family court. My daughter ended up coming home by the grace of God, by her own doing primarily. And we got the hell out of Dodge, out of California at the time, and I kept her safe. And she was in my custody for 15, 16 months. And I thought we had healed together as a family. At that time, I was encouraging her to have contact with her dad only if it was healthy. I felt the only solution to healing her, God bless her little wounded soul or her wounds, is to have both parents. And I trusted him enough to put her on a plane November 5th. He promised me for many times, it's only for a week. He used his aging, dying mother to get her out there. Layla promised me she was coming home, but he promised her the moon again. He sold his house in San Diego. He lives in Arizona now. They're back up against Superstition Mountain. So he took her basically out of 11th grade. I had her enrolled in school here. She was working at Wendy's. I had her off all medication from all that craziness when she came to my care. And here we are again. She's in his care. He's pulling the same tactics. And at this point, I surrender, but I surrender to God primarily. I'm not fighting anymore this evil. So that's where I'm at now. And I just want to say to parents, don't give up hope, but don't lose yourself in this fight.
I truly understand what you mean by giving up. It's not that you're giving up. You're just giving up the fight so the children can see that it's not worth fighting. And if they find that they miss you when there's silence, they might make their way back. But if there's constant fighting, those kids will never come back. Because that's exactly what I went through for 18 years. The father kept using them to bring me back to court over, 3 times in 18 years. And it was just to wear me down and wear me down. But the more that he used the kids, the more damage they got because they didn't have time to heal from their previous lies. So they forget their lies after 18 years. I mean, who wouldn't? Lies you don't remember because it never happened, right? So now that they came back, their lies became so vulgar and violent that they literally had a psychotic episode trying to make up the lies that they made, trying to bring it back up, but they couldn't. So they got frustrated, they got badgered. We don't want our kids to go through this. And this is what's going to happen to us parents. Everybody that's lost their children in the last 4, 5, 6 years, they're going to be in family court for the rest of their lives, basically. Because now my kids, they're in their 30s. How am I going to get to see my grandchildren if they ever have any? That's the hard part.
And exactly, I don't mean to cut you off, Mary. Family court is meant to rip up families. Family court, again, there's no due process. It's all banking. From the recent findings of a lot of just research and mentors working together, it's international law for merchants, hence the UCC codes. UCC is for goods in law. So basically, they're looking at us as goods. All banking. So there's no remedy in family court. Juvenile court is way worse. These CPS cases, God, my heart goes out to these parents that are fighting these beasts because you have 9 state actors against one family, and typically they're targeting the minority family. They're using a database called Nexus Lexis, seizing offspring out of hospitals, all this. So but family, again, I think the best way at this point, avoid these courts, or if approached by a state actor, to authentically know your constitutionally protected rights. So you have the right verbiage to scare these people away so they don't mess with you. Right. But at this point, yeah, it's a generational thing. It's the trauma. It's the anxiety, the depression. And what do most people do with undiagnosed mental disorders? They resort to drugs or alcohol or promiscuity. So it's a never ending cycle of pain and trauma.
That's absolutely right. Did you have history, your spouse have history of alienation before he alienated you? Like, was it something that he knew about?
See, to me, I look back at his mom and how they grew up, and the lies now that she told him, that she escaped Russia and Germany. His dad was Russian and she brought him to the US. But I look back now and I know his mom, she's in her 80s now, and she married for money, Lou Bergener in San Diego. And all these things that my ex-husband says that I am is a projection of his mother. I authentically married for love. I was in love with this man. This was many years ago. I was 26 though. This is 2004 when we married. But these two, the enmeshment between mother and son is beyond unhealthy, almost like she idolizes her son and he can do no wrong. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but I can see clearly through the lines of these two. So it helps me not take things so personal when the attacks come.
Right. Yeah, I understand that part too, because my ex-husband was alienated from his dad when he was 9 months old, never to have a father. When I met my ex, he was 18 and asked me to go to the courtroom so he could change his name. He got a stepfather. A new stepfather, and wanted to change his name. And I said, I don't understand, change your name. Because I didn't know anything about divorces. This is back in the 70s, right? And he says, yeah, if I take my stepfather's name, he'll stop beating me. I thought, by the time I got to know who his stepfather was, he was an alcoholic. So my ex-husband was no different, a teenage alcoholic. I had no idea it would end up into domestic violence later on, because my parents didn't drink. My parents didn't do drugs. We didn't do drugs. But here I got forced into marrying a soldier. And what do soldiers do? They drink. Soldiers come home, they're drunk. They, demand things from their spouses because that's what they're brought up to be, the all-powerful, mighty soldier, right? I mean, I've been with the military for 40-something years, working for them. Now my son's in the Navy, so I still keep in touch with everything that's going on. So I had a lot of young kids come to me, because I worked for the military police, telling me that they missed their family, had me contact them. They committed suicide because their families split up. That's why they joined the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force. So a lot of kids are going into the reserves or whatever, with mental health issues, because they never got to deal with it at home. My son, 6 months after the judge allowed my alienating husband my ex to have the kids. Well, my boy at 6 months couldn't deal with the conflict from his sisters, because they became very, very disrespectful to him. That onus is on him, because he took their mother. These girls were throwing out their aggression in a way that they were punishing him. So they ran away. My boy ran away. So what was he raising? And now the kids are saying, oh, their dad raised them. But yet I was alone with them for 18 years with the military, because their dad was never home. So these kids that I find that miss their family, the unit, without a mom or a dad, it's going to get bad for them no matter what. So it's sad that the courts have to do this purposely.
And that's the thing that the courts aren't understanding. They're not using their own diagnostic tools. They're not looking at the DSM-5 and ICD-11. They're creating more conflict. And again, this whole cognitive dissonance, and then the chaotic disassociation versus estrangement is huge, because it's almost like the offspring's brain goes into haywire. We've all heard of the Stockholm syndrome, but this chaotic disassociation, where their brain is again overridden with all these false bad memories that never happened. And if one parent is made out to be the bad parent, there's automatically a victim and a hero, right?
Right.
So it's a dialogue, a false narrative that really gets into the psyche and the self-worth of the human being. Everyone wants to feel worthy, valued, and loved. Well,
Right.
if the little child is having one parent's bad, well, there must be something wrong with me. It's not okay.
It's not okay. It really isn't. And what I've watched in my own children, from the time they were born, they were groomed to be mean to me. And it was because their father only knew how to be a bully when he was by himself with his mom. by the time he was a teen, he wasn't allowed to join family functions because he was so mean to everybody else in the family. Now they pushed him away. So as he got older, that was his way of getting back into things. And this is what I'm watching in kids, that they're going to bribe the parent for gifts to see them. Right? And that's wrong. Why should we give our kids gifts to see us when we're told when they're little, oh, you're giving them too much gifts. What are you doing? But yet when they're older, we have to give them gifts to come visit us.
Well, I can speak from my experience and what I've seen with the whole, and I hate this term, the narcissistic parent. But that's classically what it is. You have the narcissist who's money driven, money hungry, power hungry, control seeking, lies, ego filled. And what they're embedding in the children's mind, whether gifts, that's what Layla's dad just did her. Come out here, I'll buy you a car, I promise you the world. But they don't understand the long-term consequences of these short-term choices.
Right.
It's years to come unless there's self-awareness or healing. So what do? You can't rationalize with somebody that's not willing to look at their own behavior.
That's right. I mean, it's like a catch-22. It's damned if you do and damned if you don't. I didn't leave my partner because I knew he suffered with an illness. I knew he got damaged because he was out in the field in the, going through whatever they do in the army. So I tried to be that person for him, but you can't. No matter what I did to help him, it just backfired on me. It's like I'm dodging bullets here, there, and everywhere. Mm-hmm. And to protect my kids, I had to file a divorce. And when I did, he convinced me that we'd go to marriage counseling if I dropped the divorce. Now, that's 25 years later. And it's like, okay, well, I did. But it turned out it was the worst thing to do because it ended in the marriage counselor's office. And I ended up going to prison because I revealed what I didn't like about him. The narcissistic mortification, I mortified him because I literally spoke the truth in front of a human other than himself. When I told him I didn't like him doing this or that, it was always private. But when I spoke out in front of the counselor, that was it. He was outed.
And that's what we have to be so careful for. First of all, we're playing Russian roulette. When we walk into these courtrooms, first of the name in all caps, we're submitting to the jurisdiction, we're submitting to the judge, taking authority over the living man or woman. Then you have these so-called professional mandated reporters that have to report, right? Harm, whatever, but they'll do it whatever is convenient to them. Assumption, presumption, color of law, false reports, lies, just to get whatever met that they're trying to fulfill.
Right.
So, and then the family court, criminal court, I don't understand how these two are crossing to where criminal charges could be. I just had a friend, Rob Emert, go through this in San Diego. Didn't follow a family court order. San Diego DA, federal marshals, had him locked up in San Diego jail, though he had the FBI, the DA. He was basically reporting the judicial abuse. And they still crossed the jurisdictions and locked him up. And now they made him plead to a felony over a family court matter.
Wow. Isn't that sad how they can use everything against us? I mean, but yet the abuser gets away with everything. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. So for parents out there, what do you suggest that they can do before the alienation happens? I mean, you had 50-50 custody, and to lose there's a lot of people out there that fall into the same category as you. I had no rights. I got a phone call a day, but he just unplugged the phone, There was no address. There was nothing. So I had to search for my kids on social media. That's the only communication I had.
So that this is the tricky thing. Well, when we have the narcissistic ex, whatever the court order is, that whole time there is the small seeds of the brainwashing, the weird enmeshment, the talking to a 5-year-old as if they're your friend. That's what the NP does basically, and all these false narratives. It starts. There's phases of parental alienation. I think there's 3 phases, and
Right.
it just starts with the little seeds being planted, and the parents bad, and then it's the full alienation. So I would totally say be proactive to any parent. The second you start seeing these little signs of they're not answering the calls, like be proactive. Whether, again, I have no faith in family court, but you could always get the court order, violation of court order, or even so start filing the civil suits. And I know we don't want conflict, but I feel like that's the only way for accountability these days, is when you say, okay, there are civil tort laws to protect us from such abuse. Malicious intent is one that's for standing. And I have noticed that almost every parent going through this, the other parent had malicious intent with parental interference. So that's pretty much standing for a tort claim, which there's due process in those courtrooms versus family court.
Right. So, okay, for interference wise, when we have the CAS, we have family therapists, all hired by the courts. What can a parent do to deny the court's therapists? Because we don't believe in any of them anymore. We all know they're the worst people to connect with. Can parents go out and get their own therapist? Will it take points off of them for getting their kids? Will they be punished?
So this is where it can get tricky again. We want to approach everything in honor with these dishonorable courts. But one could kindly assert their fundamental and constitutionally protected rights by taking more authority and saying such things. Your Honor, under what lawful authority do you have to make such decisions? Your Honor, it is my unalienable and fundamental right to choose a neutral third-party therapist outside of the court. And if per se they don't let you, then there are financial things behind the scene that we could do and file for FOIAs to get down to the financials and say, okay, well, if you're demanding I take this therapist, I want to see the financials, because obviously there's conspiracy racketeering. God forbid they don't want you to do that.
Right. Good. Oh. Good. Yeah. So when a parent goes to court, but they don't want to be in court, is there any way out of these situations? I know I didn't want to go to court. I wanted just 50-50 amicable. You move out. The kids can stay here for, a week at a time. The kids will visit you for the week, but it doesn't work that way because these people are so angry at us for leaving them. They're not angry for the divorce. They're angry because we left them.
Absolutely. It's a vengeance like I've never seen. And years later, I can't believe my ex texted me last night out of nowhere. 5 different things, but he's basically like, why won't you leave me alone? I'm thinking, oh my God, I wish you would just leave me alone. So it's that weird perverted distortion. But to answer your question, if parents don't want to participate in this racket, depending on what the matter is at hand in front of the court, if it's a criminal matter, again, tread lightly. There's a dialogue and a certain spiel that one could say that I'm not a surety bond, I'm not a corporation, nor do I intend to become one, blah, blah, blah. But family court, you could do that too. Basically, you're not giving the judicial referee jurisdiction, but one has to know what they're doing. One has to weigh the options. Is it worth it? because you could get the matter dismissed, or they could say she's crazy because you're bringing a different kind of court into their court. So it could go either way depending on the case. And
Right.
mhm.
We got a few comments here. I'd like to let's see what we got.
Sure.
Oh, we got Dolores. Hi, Dolores. Dolores is an alienated mom as well. Let's see, what does Dolores say here? She says, unfortunately, there is no due process given within the family courts. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. Due process is basically fair court proceedings. All the constitutionally protected rights are upheld too, right? There is no fair due process. Parents are being railroaded. They're not getting the finding of facts to the court. Judges are coming in and they're already biased making these decisions. So that's a violation of due process. Fraud upon the court is a violation of due process. Lack of subject matter jurisdiction is a violation of due process. Everything going on in family court is almost a violation of due process.
So if my ex's lawyer walks into the courtroom, drops his leg on the table because he sprained it the night before, 23rd of December, and says, I had dinner with the judge, it's going to be an easy case. He knows all about it. Sure enough, within 5 minutes, the judge allowed the ex, calling him a domestic violence offender, but he gets the house and kids and don't pay support till the house settles. So this lawyer, 17 years later, was his lawyer again. But you know, the best thing, that because they lost, the lawyer had to sign the endorsement. He couldn't look up at my face. And I thought, you know what? You stared in my eyes for 5 days, watching me suck in the abuse for 5 days, and you couldn't take your eye off of me. But now that you lost, you can't even put your eye on me. So they know that they did wrong, these people. And when they get caught, they're very embarrassed about it.
And I would not want to be them because, again, what goes around comes around. And karmically, they will have to pay, whatever your spiritual belief is. Even it's the scripture says, treat others as you would want to be treated. Don't trespass on other people's property. Love your neighbor. Woe ye attorneys. Basically, don't commit all this fraud before the people. And everything is spiritual in this battle, I feel. And these attorneys will have to pay karmically.
Yes. Mike Simmons writes, Mike, the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants.
Mike is a dear friend. Mike is a fellow advocate. He is one of the original members of the Fathers Have Rights movement. He's an alienated father. He has been, he's a vet. He was railroaded by the family court system in Washington. Then he was unlawfully detained in Santa Barbara by state actors. But then he took his to trial and was found not guilty, but yet here he is 4 years later, still an alienated father dealing with all this. And this was an honorable military veteran.
Oh, really? That's so sad, and I married a military guy, and he was the worst abuser there could be. And, then you got these other ones that are suffering, serving their country, and they did it right, but they're getting punished. Mm-hmm. But you got other service members that are doing it all wrong because they're cowards, but what can you do? But it's so hard because you don't know who's going to alienate, right? You have no idea. So we got Ira. She says, I love the sign under the judges that says, those who labor here seek the truth. Is there any truth in the courts?
What is that? The lady of justice that's blindfolded? Come on now. There's no truth in these courts.
There is none. There is none. So let's see what kind of questions we got here. We need a question. Okay, here. What Uh, okay, unfortunately, these courts have no ear for child advocates either. They're getting that way. They don't want us advocates in court because they know we know too much.
Right, right. And hence why, as an ADA advocate, as a former child development counselor, like all these things I would say to the court, I'm competent to give my professional opinion. They won't listen unless you have a bar card. Hence why I don't want to do law school. I have no desire to be an attorney, but I'm in my second semester of law school, and my hopes is to go right into judging, not be an attorney.
Well, that's what I wanted to do. I was going back to school to become a judge. And I just found out my old SAP was compromised 15 years ago. So someone's been using, someone in my family, one of my kids, was using my SIN number going to school.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is the ex was very good at manipulating contracts and getting free money. And I mean, I'm sure he coached these kids. So it's under police investigation right now. And,
Right.
it's prolonged my life. Even today, 18 years later, I don't have a life because they keep bringing me to court saying I did this, 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 and this. Well, are you happy that I'm not that crackhead alcoholic that you accused me of 18 years ago? I mean, I never drank, I never did crack, but that's what they put me out to. And now that I'm doing good, they took me to court saying to the judge, oh, look, she's on TV playing her saxophone. Can I live my life? And that's what they don't want. Yeah, it was the worst trial ever in history. And I believe that this trial, because my lawyer got disbarred just months before the trial began. He got caught lying to the judge. He got caught giving the clients drugs, alcohol.
Wow.
And I get accused of being an alcoholic. I mean, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm glad I did everything on computer with this guy, right? But it was legal aid that took him to court and the Ontario Law Society. But I had no idea. So it took me 47 lawyers to get this guy because everything was a conflict of interest to get him in 2019. And once I got him, he was just a total a-hole. Like, I mean, he was violent. I called legal aid and said, can I switch? This guy's he gave me 2 heart attacks.
Wow.
I'm going to a trial with my ex, my 3 kids. Well, he even lied and said my kids had nothing to do with it. I was making up stories. He called me crazy. I'm my own lawyer. Well, didn't it turn out there's the 3 kids on the Zoom trial? And I'm thinking, well, didn't that lawyer say they couldn't? But anyways, just recently, about a month and a half ago, something made me Google him. And sure enough, he got disbarred. And he lost. And now I'm sure I could appeal this because I had to get a new lawyer a month before the trial started. What lawyer wants to do that? But thankfully, my original lawyer from 18 years ago was available.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And luckily you got lucky after that first round of that clown, whatever he was. But that's the other thing that parents are experiencing: ineffective assistance of counsel. You have these crazy attorneys that are incompetent. They'll take a case, they'll say they can handle it, but once the heat gets in there and they're up in front with the judges or state actors, they realize they have no chance. They drop the bomb, such as in Rob Emert's case again. I was lucky. My family law attorney, but this was in 2010, Tim McKinney, is an honorable family law attorney. But at this point, if I had to go through it again, there's no way in hell I would hire a family law attorney. You have more constitutionally protected rights standing as a living woman, man. But with that, you have to file a notice of special appearance. But once we retain an attorney, we're basically telling the court, I am too incompetent to stand before you. Basically, we don't know legalese. Yeah, we don't, obviously, but we can learn how to stand properly without the statutes and codes. Peterson versus Peterson, statutes and codes are not law. When you file a notice of special appearance, in one of my hearings, they didn't cite any statutes. So you're kind of invoking a common law thing. But again, that's tricky. When people hear common law, they think sovereign citizen, which is an oxymoron, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Okay, we have Jan Kula from Europe, I believe. A court is for criminals, not for a loving parent that want to see their child.
Mhm.
We have a system that is totally wrong, and it's so true. We are treated like criminals. I mean, I went to jail on charges of child abuse. I mean, wow. I'm thinking, well, how come all of a sudden overnight my kids are crying that I abused them, but for 18 years there was never an incident?
Wow.
And, and then they throw back all these other allegations from previous, like, my daughter pushed me down the stairs. She didn't want me to go home, but her best friend gave her drugs. So when I was taking her friend home, I thought I'd help my daughter overcome it, but I had no idea that she became violent, that she would be violent, push me down the stairs. Her friend picked me up. So I promised my two daughters and their friends, they both had a friend, we'd go to the mall. It's a Saturday night. I want to be home with my kids before they go back to school. So the friend was upset that I took her home, and instead of shopping. So when I took her home, I couldn't punish the younger one or her friend. So I jumped into the mall with blood dripping down my head. People were stopping me saying, you're bleeding. And I'm like in shock still, right? And I said, yeah, I fell and went on my business. We finished at the mall. We were gone maybe a half hour. When I got home, the street was covered in police officers. There was CAS at the door. They thought I was home. But thank God I was out. I pulled up. I wouldn't let them in my home.
Right.
And they wouldn't let me go in my home, first of all. But CAS was trying to get me to go in the house. I said, I don't think so. You're not going anywhere. My kids are 18, 17, 16, and 14. You don't come in my house. Nothing happened. So the police knew that this girl, the girlfriend, laid false allegations. She's now 34 years old. She has her own business. She deals with medical stuff, needles and stuff. And I'm thinking, how do people trust you? How can
Right.
people trust you when you put an innocent mom tried to put her into jail because I didn't take you shopping? Now, this is not what our children need to learn, because her parents were alcoholics and divorced. So I took her in for 3 years. I raised her like my own daughter. But I wanted one night alone with my kids, and this is what happened. So when CAS noted there was nothing that I did wrong. The police also noted I did nothing wrong. But the CAS noted that the children were parentified.
Mm-hmm.
But who were they scared of? They were scared of their father, because they had to do what the father asked them to do, to hurt me, because he was gone for 12 months overseas. He wanted me dead. He used the kids to hurt me that whole 12 months.
And sadly, they do not understand the repercussions of their behavior, that it is severely traumatizing our once innocent offspring. All these false allegations, all of these lies, they think they're saving the child from the other parent. We can't fight evil. We can't fight insanity. We can't fight mental disorders. The best thing we can do is stand in truth, be that voice for our offspring, be the complete opposite that they're telling our children that we are. Crazy, deranged, blah, blah, blah. No, we're loving, competent, pissed off parents that's not going to take this shit anymore, but I'm not fighting in family court.
No.
I am so over the hate, but I also am not going to deal with a 17-year-old or any child at any age being manipulative. At 17, you know better. You know not to lie, cheat, or steal. When you
That's
start lying and cheating, manipulating, I have to wash my hands of that too, because I can't participate in that. That's going to drive me batshit crazy.
oh,
And
for
I'm not
sure.
going
It does.
there. It's
Um,
not okay, Mary. Everyone needs a mental health diagnosis, I feel. I swear.
I'm so glad that, I for 16 years, I didn't have a therapist. I thought I could do it on my own because I was seeing a therapist while I was married to deal with my ex-husband. I mean, I went through severe, severe domestic violence to the point where he would strangle me, burn me, cut me, stab me. I survived it. It's hard to talk about,
Mhm.
but thank God the kids weren't there to see most of it, but they heard a lot of it verbally. Like he was very mean, and if the kids cried, go see your mother. She's the one that wanted you.
Mhm.
So now that he heard all that, their brains are registering that, Dad, we want you. Like we don't want mom anymore. And this is what I see in a lot of kids when they push away a good loving parent, whether it's a mom or a dad,
Mhm.
because they're seeking attention from the alienator. The alienator wasn't there, but now they're saying they are the prime caregiver. It was gone 6 to 12 months a year for 25 years. How do you become the prime caregiver?
Well, it's
So
almost, again, it's like the Stockholm syndrome. We've all heard of that, but where the child, offspring, son or daughter, feels almost trapped, where if God forbid they piss off the parent that they're with, the NP parent, that it's the coercive control, where they're forced to choose sides. No child with their brain still developing cognitively, socially, emotionally should have to choose these sides. It's up to us adults to know better. Stop the hate. Stop making them choose sides. Even after the 1,038 days of alienation, when my daughter came back to me, and all those honest conversations that we had of healing, and she would tell me things that her dad would say and do, and I still tried. I beat myself up to this day, Mary. I still try to encourage, have a relationship with him as long as it's healthy, and it's backfired on me. I'm now
yeah,
in a
that's what
situation.
happened with me. And now my children are just like trashing me to the point where it's it's sad. I can't even say it, especially when they write about it, to say that I will never see my grandchildren. And they will, well, this one, my youngest child at 32, I will never see my grandchildren. And she will make sure she tells her children how abusive I was and how I beat them daily. But yet she told the judge I never hurt her. And then all of a sudden on social media, I become the abuser because seeking attention. Some of these kids are become drama queens,
Right. And
right? Because that's the only way they're getting any kind of attention.
absolutely. And I commend you for what you're doing. You're being the voice for so many. You've used your pain for good. You're raising awareness. You're standing in truth. So just keep doing what you're doing. And it's healing, right? Like how when we help other people, there's a sense of healing, and we all need each other in this fight. We absolutely need each other.
Yes, and that's what I urge all parents out there to join into these groups that are out there fighting for your children, because they're not just fighting for our own children. My children are adults. I'm fighting
Mhm.
for my future grandchildren. I don't have any yet, but I would
Right.
like to, let my grandchildren know that, hey, we stopped this before it got to you, to your
Mhm.
generation. And that,
Yes.
you need to be loved by both your parents. Because I said to my daughter, how could you say that? How can you face your boyfriend when you have children with him? How do you say, I don't want my mom to see my kids? I mean, what if, that husband or boyfriend of yours wants a relationship with the in-laws? I mean, they have to stop. They have to learn to listen to what they're doing. Because if they saw and felt exactly empathy,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't want their children to do that to them. You know, my kids had a lot of empathy, but it got washed away. They got brainwashed to be haters.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what Jan Kula here, the most sad thing is that the children is living in a cult with lies. They don't know what is right and they don't know what's wrong, lie or truth. And it's so true. They are living in a world of chaos.
Yes, chaotic disassociation. I keep resorting back to that anyway for my own personal experience. Anyway, I was wondering: is it estrangement? Is it parental alienation? No, it's chaos. It's the it's almost like when there's so much trauma, certain things are blocked out, but it's survivor mode. Sorry, CPTSD is kicking in.
Oh.
It's very overwhelming.
Yes, I know. I have to take a deep breath. What do you do now that we're talking about this? What do you do to get over that little hump that's just stabbing at your heart without you falling apart?
Lots and lots of deep breaths. I have to every single day start my day with some sort of like prayer, yoga, even if it's 15 minutes. End my day with prayer and yoga throughout the day. I'm always deep breathing. I make it known to like my employer, my staff, the staff that I supervise. I have CPTSD. I don't get into backstory. If I need to go take a deep breath, if I feel my central nervous system getting a little haywire, forgive me, it's not you. I may act a little weird, and I just have to go take a deep breath.
Right.
And it's okay. It's better to manage all this holistically, I feel, and look kind of crazy and out of the norm than cover it up with other things,
Yeah. Well, that's like me. I had to take up music because there was nothing I could do. I was disabled. I got arrested in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk. I mean, it was pretty bad when my dad bailed me out of jail and he had to push me down the aisle. When the last time I saw him, he walked me down the aisle to marry this man 27 years prior, or 24 years prior at that time. But I was also alienated from my father. So I knew what it was like to hate my father, but I didn't hate him. I just wasn't allowed to talk to him because the stepmother wouldn't let us. You know, the stepmother trashed us, put restraining orders on us. I was 22. Why would they do that, to a parent at that age? And it was money.
And that's what we could say to these state actors. Whoa. I have the right to the pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, happiness. Anything that is treading on that territory, y'all better step off. And again, this is where if we can, okay, what's the solution? If we can teach parents, please understand the value of knowing these certain key terms for your constitutionally protected rights. It really can carry them a long way. And then like what you're doing, how do we stay solution focused with that? It's so easy to go into that, oh my God, this happened, victim, and then depression. No, we have no time for that. If we need to take time for self-care, cool, but then we get back up like you and many others do. So I just feel we have to stay solution focused.
Right. I noticed that when I have people call me up for my help, because I do court papers, I help parent coordinating, I supervise visits, I do all kinds of things, whatever people need me to be there for. I've been doing it for 15 years. So it gives me great pleasure to be there with a child, to know the truth in the child, because I could read body language. The military taught me that. So that I see a lot of children, if they're really scared and if they're not scared. And, these parents are saying, why would he say my child is scared when he's not? So when I see it and I call them out and say, no, that child is not scared of the mom or the dad, that's all wrong. But what I was coming to was I think I lost my train of thought. But when we advocate for others, oh yeah, that's what I was coming for. sometimes they freak out on us. You don't understand. You don't know what I'm going through. Whose side are you on? This is what I hear from a lot of desperate parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to calm them down. Obviously, I'm on their side if I'm talking to them, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But so a lot of them have to understand that they need to be calm, because if they have to go into a courtroom and speak, they can't be talking like that.
Right.
They need to know their P's and Q's. Even though the alienator, well, they have no respect for themselves, how are they going to have respect for the judges? So these are what I see that the judges are looking for, is the personal respect for the person as well.
Absolutely. My mentor always told me approach everything in honor. And it's really hard when we're fiery and we're filled with emotion. He would say, remove emotion. Think of a third party. Stay calm like Jesus did when Pontius was, they were about to persecute him. You just stay calm and stand in truth. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's just crazy what we have to go through. Mike here says, "Love you, Lisa."
Love you too, Simmons. Love you too, him and Christine.
Okay, here's the thing: we are being controlling on both sides. Ultimately, everyone in these situations chose what has occurred, whether it begins from the very beginning, dating the man or woman, etc. So we need to go all the way back to our own choices in life and humans, and what we can do differently or bring awareness to as humans that probably should not procreate.
Right. Kristen. Yes,
Yeah.
Kristen's amazing. She's a warrior mom fighting for her son, Wrigley, LADCFS. They railroaded her, but she has really stood and persevered. And I hope that the end is near for her soon. But
I pray for all alienated parents out there. I mean, 50-50 equal share parenting is what we need to go into these court systems with in our minds, our hearts, and our souls.
mm-hmm.
Not take the kid away from the one parent. That's a mental mentality. It's not right. It's not fit. So these judges, they see it right away when a parent says the other parent is abusive, right?
Yeah, any healthy parent or any healthy, sound, loving, compassionate adult would not pull these tactics or these alienating behaviors. It's not right.
That's right. And that's how the judges know right away who the good parent is and who the bad parent is. So they give it to the bad parent, the kids to the bad parent, knowing that they're going to rack up the court system because the good parent's going to come and fight for the kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's all it is, money racket.
Racket. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's so sad.
Well, Mary, I have resources on my website. I'm willing to share any motions with parents, as far as like advocating in the courtroom, trying to take a step back with that, because like you said, it's time consuming, it's energy. I am so willing to help the parent that's willing to help themselves. If they need anything, they can email Lisa at pasfamilyadvocacy.com. There's resources on our website that they can go on a research hunt, whether legal versus lawful, start incorporating some of these, the maxims of law, maxims of equity, Supreme Court case law, and understand the difference of the legal lawful. Just knowledge is power. So I'm willing to help out any way I can if the parent's willing to help themselves,
That's good. So they could reach out to you and just go to your link, your page. You could be found on LinkedIn.
Yes, LinkedIn, our website's PAS Family Advocacy. There's just resources. There's information on intimate partner violence, this type of domestic violence, certain things, how you can be proactive, contact your legislators, just different things that you could do. So,
right. Well, that's what we do. We did twice a month. parents here in Ontario, Canada, we would get together and we marched to the constituent's office. We went to dump boards. None of them opened the door for us.
Wow.
I mean, we went every 2 weeks. We went to another one in Toronto, Etobicoke, Burlington, Hamilton. We went everywhere, and no one opened the door for us. So, but we're determined. The nice
Right.
weather's coming. We're going to start walking again. We need to take off all these extra pounds we put on in the winter, but we're not giving up, because if we give up, we're giving up on the future of the next generation of children. And we've come a long ways. And I know my ex-husband was hurting for 63 years now, never to have a father. Even the obituary when his stepfather died in 2018 stated that he was the biological father. Why would you do that to him? You know, on Google, and that the children, my children, were his grandchildren. They were the step grandchildren. The children need to know the difference, right? So that they know what an extended family is.
They absolutely need to know the truth, and their genealogy line and bloodline. They do need to know the truth. But
that's right. And my ex-mother-in-law used to say, you're not going to tell the kids that the grandpa is not their real grandpa. I said, well, they were raised at birth to know he was a step grandpa. She got mad.
That's her problem.
Right? That's what I said. You know, my kids know that, you know, but when I noticed it on the obituary that she literally made my ex-husband a son to him, even though he's a stepson, they need to distinguish that, because when we tell the kids the truth, the kids are saying you're a liar because that's dad's real dad. But they didn't know, you know. So a lot of times family secrets is what hurts the families.
Yeah, I would say it's truly up to us. We have an obligation, duty, and responsibility to just stand in truth, seek truth, be truth seekers, be self-aware, be accountable for our actions. If we make mistakes, pick yourself up and learn from it and move forward. Like, this whole journey of parental alienation, it's not for the weak. It's not, but it can't define us. We were human beings before we had kids. We'll be human beings long after they're 18. You know, this can give us some sort of purpose to help each other along the path, but it's all unnatural when we look at it. It's very unnatural.
It is. They're taking our kids. You know, who takes your kids? It's like someone coming up to the doorstep and snatching your child. Don't we call Amber Alert for that? You know, I called an Amber Alert after my daughter went missing 3 weeks after the judge allowed the ex to have her. She ran away. I called Amber Alert. When I got to the house, the police told me to go get her where she was. They said that she was in a home that's very violent, full of drugs, alcohol. Get her out. I went there. The whole street was covered in police. They were ready to put me back in jail. And I'm thinking, am I being set up for this? So
right.
we got to be very careful on what we do. And I have strongly advised that parents don't go anywhere by themselves.
Right.
I'm with you. Especially an advocate would be the best, because advocates are strong soldiers. That's what we need. I mean, I don't go anywhere by myself. I still take an advocate with me, and my advocate feels the same way. We help each other to help other people. So, yeah. So, Lisa, I've taken up enough of your time. We're almost coming up to an hour. What is your final words out there for these alienated parents that are struggling so hard, you know, missing birthdays, Christmas, Easters? It's so hard for us. I mean, I still cry.
Absolutely. I was crying 2 hours before you sent me the link briefly, and I was like, I don't want my eyes to be puffy, but it is what it is. It's just a constant thing. But I honestly, Mary, some may take offense to this. Well, the only thing that has gotten me through, I swear, is faith, prayer, knowing that this is all temporary, looking around and trying to see like some sort of spiritual synchronicities to grab one for signs of hope, support with mentors like Anthony Monteleone, who will probably kill me for saying his name right now on this, but he's an amazing person, a man that likes to kind of stay on the down low, but he was my mentor for many, many years. And he's a man of faith. He's the one that always say, approach everything in honor. He has carried me so far when some of these legal things, I would say, please, everyone, get yourself a mentor that you can trust. Pray, have support. If you're not whatever spiritual, make sure you're doing self-care, yoga, meditation. Take time for you, and don't let the thoughts control you. Watch the internal dialogue, those 70,000 thoughts that we have going through our minds every day. Make sure that you're saying kind things, because this mental, emotional, psychological torment from the acts of the court can really wear one down psychologically. So just stand in peace.
It sure can. And that's when I started playing my saxophone for 6 to 10 hours a day, so I wouldn't think.
Right.
And the music at the beginning would make me very emotional, because I would be playing some of these songs that when I was still at home, but playing it, instead of singing it, I played it through my horn. So it was totally different. It made everything better for me.
Yes. Music does. Yes. And you're very talented.
It's incredible what we can do to get that mindset out. I mean, we're never going to give up thinking about our children, no matter what. And we have people say, get over it, get over it. Well, excuse me. How about somebody take your kids and then I can tell you to get over it? What would you do? So people need to understand that these alienating parents are suffering. It's like living a death every single day, prolonged grief disorder. And that's where CPTSD comes in, right? Because PTSD is something that happened. And if it triggers you, it's because something triggered it. But CPTSD, we're constantly being traumatized every morning because we don't have children to dress, get ready for school, feed, and our teenagers, we can't take them to the mall, or mom, dad. We don't hear that anymore. So
I would really say, and we can end it here, but I would say, try to have a mental shift. I would always say, I'm looking at it as if I'm on a mission, like parents go away to, other countries or war for a year. God, if this is what I have to go through to just stay like in that warrior mindset, this isn't forever.
right.
And the acronym for HOPE, hold on, pain ends. Like, stay proactive in this fight, but don't give up. But don't let fear and anger take over, though. We can't let that happen.
Right. That's how I dealt with it when I went overseas for 6 years, never saw my family. And it wasn't because I alienated them. It was because I had to fly across the world to get home to see them. But I did. Each time the children were born, I got to take them to grandparents so that the grandparents got to see them once or twice a year. I mean, I found ways to get there to each family. And thank God they were all in the same city. So it wasn't that they were far apart. So I got to visit both grandparents at the same time. But I took it now as my kids, because they turned 18 shortly after the divorce, that they were in school for 4 years or 7 years. This is how I'm getting over it. And still thinking that, they're going to come home for spring break or something. I still have hope. I'm not losing hope.
Right.
Don't
lose hope, Mary. And I love that you have your little puppy there with you. He's so sweet.
That's my Molly.
Molly.
She's
Hey, Molly.
attached. She reminds me of, I hate to say it, but a narcissist. If you don't pay attention to her, she'll bark your head off.
That's funny. Narco.
Yeah. But thank you so much, Lisa. I just want to, don't jump off. I just want to say goodbye to all the parents out there. And remind them that on Tuesday, April 25th is Parental Alienation Day. And I have an event that's going to last from 1 in the afternoon to 8 p.m. So we'll be filming our podcast. That's going to start off with Charlie Azario from Malta. He's another family therapist, but all day long, I'm going to have people on to say hello to their children, their grandchildren, just share a few steps. So if anybody wants to be on the show, periodically during the day on Tuesday, just send your email onto the podcast and I'll click you in, and you can, give us a shout out or whatever and say hi to your kids. But yes, Parental Alienation Worldwide Day is a recognizable event. June 14th is Grandparents Alienation Day. So we are being recognized out there because they wouldn't have made it into a national event, right?
Hmm?
So, but thanks again, Lisa. Parents, alienated grandparents, children, don't give up hope. We are here for you. Reach out to Lisa Breece Linke here on my Parent Alienation is Child Abuse page, or go to YouTube. We are on YouTube as well. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mary, for having me. Thank you for raising such awareness, and God bless everyone. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Lisa. God bless too. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Let me just end the broadcast and